Good morning to virtual Anaheim and guten Abend from Germany. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Although I would have massively preferred to have a big, sweaty, messy, loud NAM with tons of friends and colleagues from all over the world. Certainly can't wait for that to happen again soon. I do have the pleasure and honor to introduce the next step in our immersive IEM revolution today. What started as a young German startup with a vision a while ago has developed year after year. We're blessed with the trust and friendship of so many professionals all over the world, from small local community centers to international TV shows, from mega churches to the biggest pop stars in the world. We value this and we want to keep giving back by innovating and making IEM mixing a pleasure instead of a duty. 2 years ago, shortly after joining forces with our friends at Digico, we were able to add a haptic element to our immersive mixing hardware with the Digico workflow integration. This was a fantastic success and is loved by monitor engineers all over the world. Today, I'm excited to introduce the next element for tactile control of musicians' IEM mixes. This time not just for engineers, this time for each and every musician in theaters, houses of worship, recording studios and concert stages. Take control of your immersion. Please meet the newest member of the KLANG product family, KLANG Controller. The tactile interface for all of our immersive in-ear monitoring processors, lifting a musician's personal mixing experience to a whole new level. KLANG Controller is exactly what the name suggests. The controller for KLANG. In the next few minutes, you will find out what makes this device special and why is it so much more than just a haptic interface. First of all, let's take a look at the backside and all the connections. There's a network port, which has 3 functions. It powers the unit through PoE. Control, that means it takes care of the communication between KLANG Controller and the KLANG processors, which could be KLANG Fabrik, KLANG 4, or DMI KLANG, or whatever might follow in the future. And then there is a Dante 2-channel in and 2-channel out port. The Dante input, of course, sends the actual immersive in-ear mix from our KLANG processor to our KLANG controller so we can locally listen to it. The output can be used for several functions. I will get back to that. There's a USB port, which we can use for software updates, but also to exchange show files. Right beside that, there's a local aux in the form of a mini jack with, which gives us a stereo analog input directly locally on our personal mixing station here. That is super handy for a musician, for a drummer maybe who needs a local click or a playback or a rehearsal track in a break between rehearsal songs. Not only can I add this local input to my in-ear monitoring mix locally on my controller, I can also choose to send that out via Dante into the main system and from there share it with the rest of the musicians. If I want to connect locally an RF transmitter or a bass shaker, a wedge, a subwoofer, whatever, I can do that simply with the XLR lineouts on board. In case I don't have a PoE switch on hand, of course I can power it with a DC power supply directly locally. And then probably one of the most important things for this device is the headphone amp directly on board. There's a 1/4-inch headphone jack in the back of the unit, accompanied by a 1/8 of an inch jack on the front side. Now let's take a look at the bottom of the unit. 2 things to note. First, 4 rubber feet. That shows us that we can use the device easily as a tabletop device. It can be used on a table, on a keyboard, on a Hammond organ, or if the drummer is, featuring 8 toms and only uses 6, you can just place them on the toms. But a better way would be to mount it on a microphone stand, ideally with the K&M mic stand clamp, which is a great way to just keep the device securely in place, and you can mount it to whatever you need. You can mount it to a table, to a microphone stand, to drum hardware, whatever you need. Turning it again and looking at the top side, you might notice that this is a typical KLANG design. It features a super clean interface, which gives me all the information that I need, but it doesn't clutter up the interface with anything unnecessary or distracting. One of the most prominent features are the 8 colored displays. They show me channel name, level, metering, and whatever is interesting at this time. And since they are colored displays, we can use the same color coding that musicians love to use in KLANG app. That makes it very, very easy to find the right channel that I want to mix, because I can just create my own color coding and just give drums a different color than a guitar or a keyboard. Below those, there are 8 rotary encoders with a push and turn function. The push function can be selected by 3 different buttons. 2 of those would be mute and solo. So if I select mute and then I push down on one of the encoders, that will mute the channel or several channels. Same thing for solo. If I select solo and then push down on one of those encoders, it will solo the channel. A handy little extra feature is that once I solo the channel anywhere in controller, this solo button will blink, which shows me, pay attention, something is soloed. You might not hear everything that you want to hear. So in case that happened accidentally, a musician can simply press and hold the solo button for a few seconds, and that will act as a solo clear function. And we can hear everything again in our mix. The third option for the push function is the config button. If I push that and then I select any channel, that will lay out all the channel controls across KLANG controller. I can see the channel name, I can see the level, I can adjust the level and mute and solo it. Also I have the choice between 2 panning modes for each channel, either stereo or 3D. If I'm in 3D, I can adjust the azimuth, which is the horizontal panning of a signal around my head, and the elevation, which moves the signal above my head or below my head. That means with those 2 rotaries, I can access any angle for any signal around my head super easily and create my perfect immersive in-ear monitoring mix. If I'm using a stereo channel, I can also adjust the width. That means I can decide how far apart left and right channel of a stereo signal are apart within my binaural immersive soundscape. I can assign a channel directly to a different group, and of course I can also change the color to whatever I like. On the left hand side you can see 5 bank selector keys. The first one would be the groups bank. You probably know the DCA groups from KLANG app already. And the same thing is possible to use in KLANG controller. We can use 8 groups at a time, including the famous KLANG relative mixing function, which helps to keep the overall volume for each musician in check in an intuitive way, which is a fantastic way to protect the hearing of musicians. By the way, this feature can also be deactivated. That means every musician has a choice between KLANG style relative mixing and classic DCA style mixing. Below the groups bank, we can see 3 channel banks. They give me access to 24 channels at a time. Those channels, by the way, can be mono or stereo channels, which is plenty for a musician to mix themselves on stage. And then we have the Ambience and aux bank. It gives me access to local ambience, I'll get back to that in a sec, the local aux, and then combines those 2 with the actual mix volume in my KLANG processor. Those combined then are sent to my headphone amp. On top of the device, you can see a big main volume button, which makes it super easy to reach it from whichever angle I need to get there. My master volume is what is going out to my headphone amps, right? But there's a little emergency feature. In case I turn it all the way off, it will mute all outputs of controller, no matter if it's the local headphone amp, the local line outs, or the Dante outputs, no matter how my mix is arriving at my ear. In case something unexpected happens and I need to protect my hearing, I can do that easily, directly, with a quick swipe to the left. Now let's take a look to the side of the unit. You can see the KLANG logo and a little bump in the middle of that. This little bump is what we call true ambience. What is true ambience? It's a set of fully digital binaural ambience microphones. They can handle up to 130 decibels. So it's designed to be used on stages, even if they sometimes get loud. It's designed to be placed directly beside a drum set, even if the snares hit really hard. So that's not posing any problem. And having a binaural ambience directly locally with me on stage is a fantastic feature. It's not a local ambience that's just mudding up my mix and, not really giving me any information. It actually feels like my in-ears are transparent, right? As if they're not even there. Not only gets this rid of the feeling of being locked in my in-ears, because it's giving me a binaural ambience exactly in the way that I'm used to from real life. But also it makes communication super easy. Gone are the days where in a rehearsal situation, I need to, dig out my in-ears to have a conversation with the musician beside me. I just use the local ambience, the true ambience. Let's say we're designing a setup with a digital console that features DMI slots. We simply add a DMI Dante card as well as a DMI KLANG card. We need a network switch and a computer running KLANG app for the basic setup of our KLANG processor. Now we add a couple of network cables from the Dante port to our switch, from KLANG DMI's control port to the switch. We add in the computer, and if we choose to use the integrated workflow on the console surface as well, we simply add another network cable between DMI KLANG and the console's network port. If you want to learn more about the integrated workflow of KLANG, having all the KLANG controls directly on the digital console surface, just follow the QR code above my head here, which will lead you directly to a webinar on this topic, where you can learn all the functionality as well how to set it up. Now let's add a couple more controllers to our system. We just run a couple of network cables to some controllers, and if those controllers are meant to be used by, let's say, singers who want to move freely across stage, we can directly locally connect RF transmitters to the line outs of controller. If we want to have it tidy and we have all the RF transmitters in a rack beside our stage box, we can of course send also the KLANG mixes back via Dante into the main system, and from there, send it out to whichever output device we want to use. Speaking of Dante, by the way, you don't have to manually repatch your Dante with Dante controller in case you're changing one controller to a different mix. Once you choose a different mix and you have the Dante follow function activated, the repatching is happening automatically. So it's a super quick way to work with it. For the rest of the musicians, we simply add a couple of more controllers, and of course those musicians can use the headphone amps directly on board of KLANG controller. Now let's say you have a couple of guest musicians coming in, so you have more musicians on stage than controllers at hand. No problem, you can simply add a Wi-Fi hotspot, and the rest of the musicians simply use KLANG app in the same way that they're used to doing it already. So KLANG app and KLANG controller can happily live side by side in different mixes. But not only in different mixes, they can also be connected to the same mix, in case a musician prefers to do the levels on the tactile interface of KLANG controller, but would prefer to do the placement of the signals on a touchscreen. No problem, it's completely your choice. Now, if we're not using a digital console like a quantum series console or an ST12, which features DMI slots, let's say we're using an S21 or S31, it's exactly the same workflow. We just add a DMI Dante as well as a DMI KLANG, and the rest of the setup is completely unchanged. Of course, the same thing is possible with a KLANG Fabrik. We could use MADI for the inputs to Fabrik and the Dante port of Fabrik to connect it to the rest of the system, including our controllers. Same thing is true for KLANG 4. Even if you're using a different console that is not made by Digico, that's no problem at all. You can use KLANG Fabrik, KLANG 4, or even a DMI KLANG housed in an orange box to connect it to any mixer that is out there. The rest of the system, again, is unchanged, and you can use your controllers in all kinds of situations. Another very, very interesting use case, of course, is studio. So for studio recordings, it is as important, if not even more important for musicians, to have a perfect in-ear mix. And a binaural in-ear mix protects their hearing, it gives them more transparency, it's more relaxing for the brain, especially for long recording sessions. So of course, KLANG Controller is a perfect tool for studio recording sessions as well. You simply connect your audio interface with your KLANG processor of choice, and the rest of the setup is exactly in the same way as I described it before. If you're using a KLANG Fabrik, you can even use the optical ADAT outputs of your audio interface to feed the KLANG system with audio. Super simple. All right, as promised in the chat before, we do have a little bit time in case there should be any pressing questions, in case I forgot anything in the presentation a minute ago. So feel free to just type them in here. In case you don't remember any questions right now, I will put an email address into the picture in a couple of minutes. So you can always get in touch with us. Let us know what you think. Let us know where you would like to use KLANG Controller. And yeah, we're happy to work with you on that. I saw, not really a question, but I saw a comment from Chris. Displays look familiar. Wonder where else I have seen those. Yes, of course. As I mentioned before, we are a part of the Digico family, and KLANG Controller is a love child of KLANG and Digico, if you can say it like that. So yeah, there's quite a bit of Digico hardware knowledge in there, which is of course a super important factor, because it has to be done by a company that absolutely knows how to do tactile devices and how to make them stable and work well, okay? And of course be rugged. So yes, there are a couple of things that you might be recognizing. Let's see. There's a hi from Pete Snellgrove. Hey, buddy. Good to virtually see you. Yeah, it's a very different name than all the ones that we had before. So there's a question coming in from Zeke. Hey, buddy, how are you doing? When is the controller being released? I don't have an exact release date yet, but it's going to happen in Q1. And I would be quite surprised if it would be late Q1. So just follow our social media, follow our news, sign up for the newsletter, and you will be the first ones to hear about it once it is available. Oh wow, and I'm getting a comment on my beard. I guess I'm a full YouTube influencer now. So, guys, not too many more questions. From chat, there was a comment, love seeing Dante represented in so many products. Yes, Dante is a super helpful way of getting audio into the right directions, and it's it's massively flexible. So yeah, it does absolutely make sense to stick with Dante, as we have done from the beginning. And I have mentioned it before, but I have to mention it again because I personally find this a super cool feature, that we have the Dante follow functionality, which means that if I change a mix on a controller to a different one, I don't have to cramp out Dante controller. The audio patching will just follow automatically. As I mentioned before, that is a great way to just make changeovers between different sets faster. But also, just to give you an idea, it's possible to just put a controller beside front of house if there's no monitor console, and the front of house engineer can just easily listen into all the mixes of the musicians through the same headphone amp that they're using there. Or you could even use controller like a mini monitor console on the side of the stage. So a tech could just help the musicians during the the setup and sound check. So let's see. I think there are some more questions. Will you post the video? Yes, the video is going on YouTube, and we will post the link probably in the next couple of days. So yes, that video is going to be available. Mark Frink, hey buddy, how are you doing? Mark is asking, what's the minimum system? I would say the smallest system that you could do would be a KLANG 4 and one controller. So there's no actual minimum size of a system. You can just connect directly one controller to any existing or future KLANG processor. That is no problem. Then there's a question from Tom. Hey, how are you doing? If I use an orange box with MADI and a DMI, how do I get the control cable you had from the Dante card? Not sure if I understand the question correctly. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you can just simply connect both the Dante port from the DMI Dante and the control port from your DMI KLANG with your switch. And that's how both are in the network. And then controller again has the combined port, so it just picks apart it itself between audio and control data. Jose, sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, is asking if there is a press release on this. There will be, yes. Today is just the first time that we are mentioning this publicly in detail, and there will be a press release on this, of course, absolutely. Zeke is asking another question. In the future, will the offline editor allow you to design a controller? Well, we don't have an offline editor at this time. However, it's quite high up on the wish list. But of course, you can do that. Also, you can do the full setup of the system with KLANG app super comfortably. So that's how I would recommend to do it. So if you have multiple controllers, just do your setup for all the mixes in KLANG app, do all the naming, the coloring, and basic mix from there. And once a controller is connected to the mix, all that information is available to it. And by the way, not only that, if you're using a full Digico and KLANG system, so you're using an SD or Quantum console with the console integration, that makes it even easier. So if you name all your channels on the console, that will of course be sent over to the KLANG processor, and through that, of course, through controller. So even if you change a label, that will also be changed on the controller, even in the middle of the show. And of course, you can use the Digico offline editor to prepare your mixes to whatever you want to do. And that, of course, in the same way, will be spilled over to the KLANG processor, and through that to KLANG controller. So let's see. Michael is asking if I already mentioned the price. No, I did not. The price will be released very soon. What I can tell you, it's a competitive price. Let's put it like that. All right. So let's see if there's any further questions. No, I think I got back to all of them so far. Oh, there's another form from Marty. Hey, any plans for 2-port controller so Dante can run in redundancy? Great little box. Thank you very much for the comment on the great little box. I would agree, it's a very great little box. We don't have plans to do that at this time, simply because from how we know installations on stages and fixed installations, getting rid of cable mess is a quite important factor, right? So controller can be powered and run and sourced with audio with one network cable. So that keeps it super clean. Who knows what's coming in the future, but there are no current plans for that. Okay, I think that's it. So guys, if you should have any further questions, if you remember anything later, just feel free to get in touch with us. You will see the email address in the when I finish here, and we are super happy to to get back to all of your questions and talk about all kinds of installations. And we're super excited to see our newest baby in the wild. So once you have one or several, send us pictures. We are always curious to see that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. Please enjoy the rest of NAMM and Believe in Music. I really hope to see you all and more people next year in a real physical NAMM again in Anaheim. Can't wait to see you there. So let's have a chat, let's nerd around, let's have a beer and a bite. So thank you very much, and have a lovely rest of the day. And keep in mind, we're doing another presentation on Thursday. So join us there. We might go even a little bit deeper in the functionalities of KLANG controller. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.